To understand what saved Toyota, we need to go back to where it all began, and it wasn't in any automobile factory. In rural 19th century Japan, a young inventor named Kiichiro Toyoda, he spent his days obsessed with weaving machines, not out of aesthetic interest, but out of obsession with failure. Kiichiro wanted to understand why looms would snap a thread and keep running as if nothing had happened, contaminating meters of fabric with a defect that would only be discovered much later. The answer he created would change everything. After years of experimentation, Kiichiro built a loom, capable of detecting a broken thread and automatically stopping its operation in that same instant. A simple mechanism, a revolutionary principle. Don't let the error propagate. Stop at the source, fix before moving forward. At the time, no one called it a management philosophy. It was just a solution to a fabric problem. But the seed of something much greater had been planted. In 1929, Kiichiro sold the patent for one of his looms to the British company Platt Brothers for 100,000 British pounds, a significant sum at the time. Before dying, he passed that capital to his son Kiichiro Toyoda, and this is where the story took an unexpected turn. Kiichiro was not a textiles man. He was an engineer with vision, and he saw in the automobile the lever of Japan's industrialization. The decision to enter that market was almost irrational. Americans dominated it. Japan had little experience. The risk was enormous. But Kiichiro believed that nations that didn't master heavy industrial production would remain dependent forever. So he bet with his father's inheritance, with the courage of someone who knows that comfort is progress's greatest enemy. In 1935, Toyota produced its first passenger car prototype. In 1937, the Toyota Motor Company was formally established as an independent company. But building automobiles was radically different from building looms. Engines required tight tolerances. Chassis required integration between dozens of components. The supply chain was complex, fragile, and expensive. Toyota was learning by doing, which is an elegant way of saying it was making mistakes, adjusting, and trying again, day after day. And then the world collapsed. With World War II, Toyota redirected its production to military trucks. Resources were rationed. Steel, rubber, fuel, everything was scarce. In that environment, there was no room for waste. Every part had to serve its function. Every process had to be lean. Producing as little as possible stopped being a competitive advantage and became a matter of literal survival. What happened during this period is fundamental to understanding what came next. Toyota absorbed, under the hardest conditions imaginable, the mindset of eliminating everything that generates no value, not as theory, as instinct. And when the war ended and the world collapsed, that instinct would be the only thing standing between the company and its end. Japan in 1945 was a shattered nation. Factories operating at half capacity, virtually no domestic demand, compromised infrastructure. For Toyota, the situation was even more critical. Growing debts, minimal production, and cash running dry. In 1949, creditor banks arrived with an ultimatum: total restructuring or financing cut. In 1950, workers went on strike. The company was technically on the edge of bankruptcy. This was not a moment for strategy. It was a moment of pure survival, the kind of situation where an organization discovers, through sheer force of circumstance, what it is truly made of. Under pressure from creditors who conditioned the financial rescue on leadership changes, Kiichiro Toyoda did something few leaders ever managed to do. He gave up his position. He resigned from the presidency of the company his father had financed, that he himself had founded, that carried his family name. The decision was simultaneously pragmatic and symbolic. Pragmatic, because it was the condition imposed by the banks. Symbolic, because it sent a clear message inside and outside the company. Here, the institution matters more than any individual. Here, ego is not placed above collective survival. That culture of genuine accountability at the top would become one of Toyota's most invisible and powerful pillars. In the decades that followed, with the company stabilized but still fragile, Toyota's engineers made an honest and uncomfortable assessment. It would never be possible to compete with Ford or General Motors. At their own game, scale, capital, consolidated market, the Americans won on every front. But there was one dimension where Toyota could win: the internal logic of production. Instead of large inventories, production pulled by real demand. Instead of ignoring defects to keep the pace, stopping the line immediately upon detecting any failure, exactly as Kiichiro's looms did. Instead of maximizing volume, maximizing efficiency at every step. It was a complete inversion of the dominant logic, and it was built from everything the company had learned in war, in crisis, in the mistakes of its early years. Engineer Taiichi Ono was the man who transformed that philosophy into a system hired by Kiichiro in the 1940s. Ono spent decades inside Toyota's factories, observing, questioning, and dismantling every process that did not generate direct value. What he built became known as the Toyota Production System: pulled production, waste elimination, continuous improvement, immediate response to failure. This model would later be documented, studied, and replicated worldwide under the name lean manufacturing, applied not only in factories, but in hospitals, startups, logistics, and technology. What was born from an existential crisis became the global standard of industrial efficiency in the decades that followed. Toyota's reputation grew steadily and almost silently. Its vehicles became synonymous with reliability. Its efficiency became a subject of study at American and European universities. Manufacturers who had once ignored it began sending delegations to understand how that Japanese company managed to produce more with less, with fewer defects, with greater predictability. Bestsellers were written about its methods. Training programs were built around its philosophy. And Toyota kept doing what it had always done, improving a little every single day, relentlessly, without rest in that obsession. Decades after nearly vanishing, Toyota became the largest automaker on the planet, not by copying but by reinventing, not by scaling before its time but by building intelligent systems that hold under pressure. And the most fascinating part, the roots of everything were there from the very beginning. In Sakichi's looms, which stopped upon detecting error, in the discipline absorbed during the war, in Kiichiro's courage to give up his position to save the institution, in Taiichi Ono's refusal to accept waste as inevitable. The turning point was not a single moment. It was the sum of choices made under extreme pressure, and the capacity to transform each one into structural learning. The Toyota story is not about cars. It's about what happens when an organization decides, consciously, to transform adversity into architecture, when a crisis is not merely survived, but used as raw material to build something stronger than what existed before. Because a company's lowest point may be exactly the point that redefines its future. And when an organization learns to do that, when it uses pressure not to bend, but to harden, it doesn't just survive, it leads. This is a turning point.
Thanks for watching. This is The Turning Point, and I hope to see you in the next story.